Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Nite of Misfortune bringing you another video for the game of Supreme Commander 2. This time it's going to be a 3v3 replay that I did not, obviously it's not replay of the week because this is a more of a fun match that was played a couple of days ago, but I just wanted to share with you because I do think it's quite a good match, but not quite good enough for replay of the week for that reason, and also because I'm in this game and I will not choose obviously a replay that has me playing in it. I actually don't really even like casting myself, but I did think that this was a good game. This was from a community game night that I held on my server, so I wanted to make a video about that day. So this is just kind of, I guess, a highlight from that night, because it was quite a bit of an exciting night, because we had a bunch of OSS players rejoining us for this game, and we had just amazing series of games. This was probably the best of them. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this game. I'm paused at 5 seconds as always. The map is Open Palms, very familiar to us from 1v1s, but obviously not from 3v3s. It is quite of a more high-paced 3v3 map, I suppose. So let's go ahead and see how this game unfolds. I'm gonna unpause in 3, 2, 1, go. Let's introduce our players. So as I mentioned before, we have quite a bit of OSS players here. And let's start with the team 1 here, or the north-south team, I guess. Gosh, I don't know my directions. In the bottom, we have spawning in with the white Aeon Commander, OSS Jwix, familiar to us from the League, of course. We have him spawning in as the white Aeon Commander, building a land factory, which is, of course, what you want to do on this map, especially in this position. So he is doing a great job there. His teammate on the bottom here in the central position in the south team, we have OSS Shade, a great past OSS member. She has been, I believe she is not technically part of the clan anymore, but she has earned her spot as a forever OSS member. She is always welcome in our ranks, and of course I was so happy to play with her. It's OSS Shade spawning in as the teal UEF commander, starting off with an air factory, which she can do because she's in that central position, and starting off with 2 research factories also. And her last opponent on the bottom for the south team, we have Sloth, OSS Sloth, also a past OSS member, still technically part of OSS. Most of these players are still part of OSS, and he started with 1 land factory as well, and spreading out and trying to eco all the things. And their opponents, the team in the north, we have our orange Cybern Commander, who is very familiar to us all. Great caster, great friend, and has been one of the admins in OSS for such a long time. We have OSS Spiff spawning in as the orange Cybern Commander, starting off with 3 land factories, which is exactly what you want to do on this map, and starting off with loyalists. And we have, of course, in the center, we have myself, OSS Nite, spawning in as the purple Cyber Commander, also starting with 3 land factories. My plan here was to basically try and run around the map and assist where I can, and try to pick off some mass extractors as I can. And the last player of the game, the last player of the North team, we have our blue Aeon Commander, Sui 10,000. Now, I will say that Sui is a very new player. I don't believe he even has 10 hours in the game. However, I think he did a very good job here playing in this match. So, especially against Jwix. I mean, that's, you know, Jwix is what could be considered a professional player. So, you know, definitely he did well in this game. So pretty good matchup in my opinion here, and we already see myself pushing out with these contingent of bots and trying to do as much as I can. Especially I will quickly realize that my direct opponent has went research stations, so I will want to do as much of an economic damage as I can early on to try and kind of counteract this kind of start. Of course, these bombers are going to make it very difficult for me. That is why I'm already switching into adapters here, while Jwix is trying to chase me down with his army, which is giving Sui a little bit more of an advantage to build up his army. Now, as you can tell, this positioning of land factory is not the greatest, but it, also I was actually thinking, and depending on your strategy, it might actually not be such a bad idea to place them just behind your mass extractors. Of course, you might lose your mass extractors to MML fire, but it does allow for more space here in the center to fight. So it might not necessarily be a bad idea. I doubt that that's what he was thinking, because again, he's a newer player. Especially, I wouldn't place this factory that far back, but nevertheless, I mean, for the time being, Jwix has to respond kind of to me running around the back of their bases. So I'm doing the best I can here to split my units. Well, as I say that, I'm going to group up, but you're going to see me split here in just a second. I lose 2 more loyalists, but this research station is going to go down. Meanwhile, Spiff on the bottom here has run into a little bit of a problem with a very strong point defense with a shield, factory shield on it. So he has decided to take a contingent of his own bots and send them to the back of the base here, into the pocket. Unfortunately, none of these none of the south team have decided to expand down below, which is actually pretty good for them because they have kind of lost the early build game because they went more of a long prolonged game here. Even with this air, I know generally with the air it's easier to cover all of these advanced spots, but there's just so much happening on this map because of its 3v3 nature that it just adds a new element, and this air cannot cover everything here. Shade could also be doing a little bit of a better job splitting the attacks on my different units. As you can see, these units are taking forever to die, but that is also because they're splitting just enough so that the AoE does not affect all of them or more than one of them. And Spiff is deciding to engage here. Unfortunately, this point defense is just on the borderline of its range here, so that means that it will pick off a lot of these units, and these mobile missile launchers have not managed to break through this shield here. Meanwhile, I'm making my way back into Dark Green Sloth's base here and trying to pick off some more mass extractors as much as I can. Of course, I have my 2 adapters here now, so these bombers are going to be a little bit less effective, and I might trade a little bit more evenly. However, he is focusing down Spiff's forces instead of my own, and I could have done a little bit better job in covering my teammate and sending some of these adapters back to cover Spiff, but I think I was microing everywhere here, so could not quite get to it, and also I'm not splitting my units. But I'm trying to send a little bit of a contingent here towards Sui because I see that Jwix over here is doing quite a good job. This unit composition is fairly good, especially once you push up to your opponent. So I'm just trying to do the best I can, sending the little forces that I can, because I did expend quite a bit of units trying to run around the south team's bases. So, but I did do quite a bit of economic damage. Of course, I took down 2 mass extractors, an engineer, energy generator, research station, an energy generator here, and a mass extractor, and just generally prevented my opponents from expanding, and it looks like I took out more here as well. So the main fight is going to be here for the time being because Sui is pushing out with his commander. These 2 armies are fairly equal, and Jwix is trying to focus down Sui, and Sui did just a marvelous job here, just pulling out his commander just in time. And the one thing that's going for Jwix very well is that he already has shields. I think he went straight for it there, and a good bombing run coming out from Shade here. Unfortunately, being a new player, micro is not yet fully developed for Sui, so of course these units were grouped. Meanwhile, Spiff is just continuing to try and push this position, which I wasn't entirely sure why he was doing this, because honestly, like this part of the map is so open. You could just engage down here and take out your opponent's base from the bottom here. So that could have easily probably spelled defeat for our green player Sloth if that were to happen, because he does outnumber his opponent at this point 2-1 or very close to 2-1. Especially a couple of minutes ago, it was probably 2-1. He could have done exactly the same thing he did with the bots earlier, probably with half of his units in these MMLs, and these tanks would not be able to push him in return. And even if they did, this AC would probably, with some reinforcements from these land factories, would do a good enough job to prevent that push. So base trade would not have been really a big concern. However, we do see Spiff pushing out even without a flank. He manages to take out that land factory. He doesn't manage to quite take out that point defense here, but he does do quite a bit of damage. And now that he has 4 land factories, that is going to make his spam even more deadly. We see me trying to split off from Sui again, trying to do a little bit more of an economic damage, looking for more research points as I get my 4th land factory and try to focus down on some research myself. Meanwhile, Shade is doing a really good job switching into land now to assist her team here, because she really realizes that because of my adapters, she won't be able to do too much. She could use these planes a little bit better to try and take out these mobile missile launchers here from Spiff, which would honestly stop this attack for the time being. These MMLs continue to be a nuisance here, and I think Shade finally realizes this and going to try and bomb this team here. Meanwhile, I'm making my way into Teal's base and I'm starting to attack Shade's ACU. Now, the one thing that I realized upon looking at this replay now is that maybe I could have taken her out, or maybe put her into quite a bit of a low health position. However, I decided to try and just do as much base damage here with the few units that I had. Now, unfortunately, here you will see that for some reason, I was just very afraid of this ACU. I had so many shields here that I probably could have taken this this land factory here, and these land factories are positioned so well here that they're not allowing any of my units to pass through in between them. So my units ended up having to go all the way around, and you're actually going to see me not really do much damage here at all, despite me having a pretty good army composition compared to what Shade has in this case. So that army is gonna do its best to try and contest that. You see Sloth finally pushing back Spiff because of those point defenses and a couple of air bombs here, and is actually engaging him in the middle now as opposed to his close to his base. I do manage to take out Shade's forces here, and am going to try and take out a couple of structures here that I can. Unfortunately, Jwix's army is catching up to me, and here we see Sui actually pushing in. Unfortunately, again, there's micro, and I'm not responding with my units. Unfortunately, there's even a bombing run coming in, so this army is unfortunately going to go down very quickly, especially with shields on the field. However, this mobile missile launchers are doing quite a good of a job here, taking out some of these structures and pushing this point defense. If there was micro involved here, and if I assisted, maybe this would have been a different story. Probably would have been much of a different story. We probably would have done quite a bit of damage. Probably came up to here, maybe up to his secondary line of structures here. But unfortunately, now we are kind of on the back foot here in the north. So meanwhile, my units actually did manage to get quite a bit of damage here. They managed to take out the air, the energy generator, and a mass extractor here, so that was definitely ended up being a decent trade-off, especially making its their way back here to Sloth's base here. Meanwhile, Jwix has just so many shields on his units that really there's no way that he could be taken out by this many units, by this few units from Sui, and unfortunately Sui is so low that he's just getting target fired at this point, and Sui is going to be our first player to go down in this 3v3. I don't think I did a good enough job in covering my teammate. I think I could have helped him much more, but I wanted to focus more on Shade, because if I didn't try and cover, try and do enough damage here, she would have spiraled out of control, especially with those 2 research stations. So, you know, it's a trade-off here, but Jwix is suppressed for the time being, of course, but he is going to become more of a threat here. And in the next couple of minutes, you will see me kind of struggle to find somewhere where my army could be the most useful. And we see two interesting things starting to happen here. First of all, there's fortified artillery coming out from Sloth, and so he's gonna go enter full turtle mode here, and Shade is gonna help him with that. She's placing down a land gantry here to start building Fat Boys. So this is exactly what I was trying to prevent, this research advantage that the South team has opened up with. That's what I was trying to slow down and defend, and I did for the most part. You know, it's 13 minutes for the Fat Boy as opposed to maybe 8 or 9 minutes that it would be in standard play. So, or if she was able to keep her 2 research stations, and, you know, just if I would focus down on Sui. You know, I took a chance here, and my opening really was aimed at just running around as fast as I can. My research also, I've opened up with speed on my units, so it was quite a specific opening, and I just went with it and stuck with it. As I said, this was a more of a fun game with, you know, strategies that ranged from just you know, decent to pretty good to kind of experimental. So Spiff here is gonna get bombarded a lot by these hardened artillery stations. Now, he does have quite a bit of Brackman now, and I think he could have done this earlier at the start of the game. That would have helped him quite a bit here, and a lot of these are connecting, and there isn't much of an army left here. Unfortunately, these fortified artillery are going to be quite useful here, especially with these point defenses, to take down these shields. And if one artillery shell connects with that, that's quite a bit of damage on your army, especially when it's clogged up like that. Now, I have managed to squeeze out 4 research stations myself. My economy has finally caught up, or allowed me to push through, so that I can start building that land gantry myself and start to get megaliths. Of course, early on, if it's just 1 megalith versus 1 Fat Boy, of course, the Fat Boy will be a little bit more useful, especially on this tiny map where the Fat Boy can cover quite a bit if it's positioned correctly. So Shade can just help her friends here. And Spiff did quite a good job of pushing in here. Unfortunately, this is exactly what I mentioned. With the hardened artillery, his army just gets absolutely demolished despite having just a clear advantage here. He does end up doing quite a bit of an economic damage, but a lot of his forces do end up going down, and Sloth will be able to rebuild here without too much difficulty. And of course, with assistance from his team, with the Fat Boy coming out now, that is going to be more of an even fight despite having lost majority of his base there. I'm engaging here with my units. I'm switching to Brackman myself because it's obviously reached that point of the game. Now there's a teleport coming out here from Jwix. Unfortunately, he teleports into a very disadvantaged position because of these Brackman. He does not quite jump far enough, and this retreat is just terrible for these Shajas because they're unable to fire, and also they have to retreat in a straight path because of their speed to try and get away, and they're just gonna end up getting picked off. There's another teleport here. This is gonna start being a nuisance, and I think this is where I kind of made a mistake here, and I went jump jets to try and take care of this before going into Sakata, or trying to take out more of these you know, units, or like building more of these megaliths rather, sorry. And I think that slowed me down on the research side a little bit. So you'll see me you know, be a little behind on this experimental war in the coming minutes. So meanwhile, this Fat Boy has made its way down here to the north and is starting to defend Sloth's position here, and Spiff effectively just absolutely cannot push out with this many units. Now I am surprised that he's not able to squeeze out more units from his factories, but it looks like 2 of his factories are actually on pause. Spiff has decided to switch over to research stations, which is a smart idea because I mean, obviously we're entering the, we kind of skipped the mid game and we straight up went to like the end of the mid game, so it's like mid to late game now. So It's going to be quite difficult now. I don't know what my units are doing here. They're getting just shot at with shotjas from a long range, and I don't know what it is about me, but I'm just I guess afraid to push this kind of position. Probably rightfully so, because there's just so many shotjas and there's 3-point defenses that will be able to do a lot of work. And I think it was a good idea, especially now that this fat boy has made its way over here. And unfortunately, I will not be able to do anything, even with this megalith that just made its way over here. I'm desperately trying to build some more research generators because of that, of my tech path, essentially. Because I went so far into, you know, the bottom tree of the tree getting jump jets, and I think I actually get unit detonation. I got structure detonation. I also got like 2 stars, I think, on my units. Let me see where are the loyalists at. Yeah, I think I am at 2 stars right now, 1600 health. So I spent quite a bit of research on things that are not necessarily, well, not necessarily, they're definitely not useful at this point because we've entered that more of a late game phase. These loyalists will not do anything, like absolutely nothing. Even these Brackmen will probably not do much because of these fat boys. They're just not going to be engaging as much. They might do something if there's another teleport here, but there's so many other good ways to counter that's not really an effective way of spending your research points, in my opinion. There's another engagement here, down here in the south. Spiff is just trying his hardest to try and finish off Sloth's base here, but it's so difficult with all of these fortified artillery stations and this fat boy that has made its way down here now. And these shields are doing quite a bit of a good job defending, but honestly, a couple of connections will annihilate that army. So Spiff has to be very, very careful not to overstep and just do enough to kind of hold back this advance. That's all he can really do at this point. Now I do a little bit of a miss micro here with my megaliths. I should have kept them really in one place here around my structures, but also this is not the greatest move from white because I will be able to pick this off. This is not going to do too much damage to me. And I'm able to attack this fat boy. That is the crucial part here. I'm able to push this fat boy back with just 1 megalith and a couple of adapters here. So that is really the key. There's a structure detonate here to take out some of these shotjas, and I'm not sure why I continue pursuing this force with so many of my units, but I do so. And a bit of my base falls down. I do try over here, or previously I didn't really show it, but I tried to reclaim as much of this mass as I could, and I'm still trying to do that here, I believe. And I try to rebuild my base here. I think I jump jetted this engineer over here. Finally catch up with my opponent here. Gonna jump jet a couple of times to try and catch up with these 2 shotjas. Probably send way too much loyalists here. Spiff continuing to engage. This is basically a demilitarized zone at this point. Like, there's no way that Spiff is gonna end up pushing through, because if he does make it over here, these are just gonna turn into hardened artillery, and that is gonna break through those shields like we saw earlier. So pretty equal here, and the best that Spiff can do is just hold off his opponent at this point. And it's just so hard for me to push right now because of these fat boys and all of these shotjas. It's a really good composition on both of these sides. Is just such a difficult place to advance. And what I'm going for now is, I believe there's a what is it called, a Cicada in there, trying to, of course, get that one unit that will help me extend this game, essentially, or give us a chance rather to win, because obviously the Cicada is quite a bit of an OP unit, and nothing else that the UEF and Aeon really have matches up to that. So this first Cicada is going to make its way back now. Again, I kind of mismicroed here, so you'll see why my push could have been a little bit more efficient here. But nevertheless, we see Spiff again pushing out. I'm really not sure what he's hoping to accomplish here, because all these hardened artillery need to do is just turn into their direct fire mode, and that will effectively shut down that army. So here I activate my Cicada, just completely out of position. but also really way too early. And also it's not covering all of my units at this point. So very ineffective use of the Cicada on my part, but I'm still deciding to push because I realize that this is now pretty much the tipping point and I have to do something. So I'm pushing out with my megaliths there. There's a defensive teleport happening here, and Shade just does a really good job splitting her two fat boys and retreating. And this is a really difficult situation to push. Even with all of these adapters, it is just so hard to push this cross firing of fat boys. It is just very, very efficient, especially in this choke point with all of these freaking Shajas in here. It is extremely difficult to push, even with this Cicada here, because these shots can still connect with these forward units, even if the Cicada is covering them from behind. So they can actually target fire the Cicada in this case, and if it manages to connect with these shields or with these megaliths, they will start hitting those units even though they're hidden. So it is a very difficult position to push, even though I technically do have the better army at this point. So there's a second Cicada that I decided to pull back and wait for, but unfortunately I just don't have enough megaliths right now. But I am switching to basically nothing but adapters at this point, because nothing else will really be that useful. Just an insane amount of artillery for Sloth now is just insane. It's starting to take out Spiff's base. That is how insane it is. It just doesn't even care about this army anymore. It's just gonna start to take out Spiff, which Spiff realizes and actually takes out his commander back here. And it looks like he is going to be switching to air back here. And Shade has gotten another really OP unit, of course, for UEF, the P shield, which is just going to make it all that more difficult for me to push this position. However, I realize that this is my one and only chance here, and I need to make something work, do enough damage to prevent them from pushing me, because they're getting to that point where they can push me as well. And now that I have two Cicadas, it's a little bit more easier now. Unfortunately, again, the Cicada is just, I was having so much difficulty microing around here that my Cicada is just kind of in a worse position in this push than the last one even, because it's right in the middle of all my units. All these units are going to be getting hit by these fat boys as they're advancing now. I'm not sure what these P shields are doing. They do end up drawing away some of my megalith fire, so I guess that's good. And that Cicada, the strength of the Cicada is that it also has just a ridiculous amount of health. It has twice the amount of health of that megalith, which is just absolutely insane. Activate both of my Cicadas, not quite sure why I'm doing that, because I think I'm struggling with how much damage I can do, or how far the range of the Cicada's hidden range is, because I suspect that it's not quite the red circle that it pops up when you select the unit, because I sometimes have enemy units firing on my megaliths that are clearly inside that circle, but somehow they're getting targeted. But that's beside the point. I actually managed to get quite a bit of damage here on this forward position. I managed to take out this turtling position. I managed to take out a fat boy here. I think I even took out a fat boy somewhere here, or maybe not. But the most important part is I was able to create a more of a flat attacking position for myself, so that I don't have to deal with this triangle of death that was set up here. It was just, I don't know if it was intentional by them, but it was just such a difficult position for me to push in. And now that both my Cicadas have exhausted their cloaking, I do have to come back, but now that I have another one, I am going to try and push again. Meanwhile, Spiff's army has been defeated down here. I mean, there's just so much artillery fire. There's 4 fat boys down here now, and I mean, he can't do anything without experimentals here. It's just way too much fire, even for adapters to deal with. And at this point, I mean, I have quite a bit of research generators. I have quite a bit of research, and it's that time of the game where the Cybern has to go something that's not experimentals. There's no use for bomb bouncers in this game. I mean, yes, there's teleport, but honestly, I'm not really afraid of white at this point. I'm afraid of these fat boys that are cross-firing on me just so beautifully. This is just an absolutely great cross-firing position. And the reason why I don't go through the center, which is probably might have been a really good idea as well, is because of these fat boys here, these fat boys here, and these fat boys here that would have been able to fire on me from every direction, and that would have been just an absolute nightmare. So I decide to finally push my opponents, and I'm engaging quite closely here. Now Jwix has research freaking shock on his base, which is just making it so difficult. It was so hard for me to push this position. This whole entire game is just insane at how well they defended that position. And now Shade has made her way over here. I mismicro my megalith, or rather I forget about my megalith here, and it's gonna get picked off for free essentially here. I do have a few megaliths here for myself, so that's so this is gonna be quite a bit of an more even fight. And we do see Spiff managed to amass quite a bit of gunships at this point, so he's going to try and help me here. And there's just so much fire coming on me, honestly, that I could also have done a better job to cancel that megalith here. And I know that I have to make something work here and now, because this is a ridiculous amount of fat boys here. So I decide to just go for it up here. And even though I don't have very many, or I don't have any cicadas rather, I do still have quite a bit of shields. And because I have these units here, I think the fat boys are focusing down more of these units rather than my megaliths. So I am able to push down here and do some damage here. I'm gonna switch my focus here onto white a little bit and actually start retreating, which is not the ideal situation here. But we actually do manage to hold off this position here. I'm not sure why Shade has decided to switch her focus onto orange, but these fat boys don't end up doing as much damage to me as I thought here. Unfortunately, my army down here in the east, or sorry, this is west, do end up going down. And there's actually anti-air on these units. I didn't even realize that. Is there? Yeah, there definitely is. But these gunships are doing just a great job. Gunships are really good against fat boys because they do so much damage. And they do end up doing a lot of damage, but because of this artillery pieces now, it is gonna allow me to get quite a bit of damage on them. And Slav did not end up going long-range artillery. I'm not sure what he was teching at this point, but his base also did get taken out quite a bit. And I know that I just have to suppress him even more and not let him go into that full turtle mode that would probably end us very, very quickly. Unfortunately, there's just so many megaliths here, or sorry, so many fat boys here that I cannot keep up, especially because both of my land gantries went down here. So this is this is just a very difficult army to deal with, and I can't really push that. But what I do end up doing, I think here in a couple of minutes, is I end up using my artillery, which proves fairly effective against these units. Now white has also, so all of them like entered into this turtle mode at this point, and white has actually started building a nuclear missile silo. So that is actually very significant. And if that finishes building, he's building a second one too. If that finishes building, that will essentially end the game. Because I have my base here in a very, very small area of the map that will basically be demolished by the nuke. Now Shade is pushing through a little bit of a choke point, which also slows down her retreat, which makes it a little bit easier for my megaliths to engage her. So here with now that I got my another cicada, I am starting to engage here, and I do realize that she overextended here by quite a bit, and I am gonna end up finishing this whole entire army of 7 fat boys, which was a very good pickoff for us. We were able to slow that down quite considerably. Yeah, as you can see, I'm not losing anything because of those shields and because of that cicada. So, And now that I took out quite a bit of Slav's base, I realized that I suppressed him enough. I wanted to focus more on these fat boys. I knew where their land gantries were, so I wanted to eliminate that aspect. Now, unfortunately, I was just outside the vision range of these nukes. But even if I did see them, I'm not sure that I would have actually realized that they were nuclear missile silos. This game was just such a ridiculous micro-intensive game that it was really hard to keep up with everything that was going on around the map. And this position is also going to be very difficult for me to push. So I cannot send my units here because of this hardened artillery, because I just don't have anywhere near enough of adapters for this position here. But Spiff actually does a really smart job with these gunships, because these fortified artillery are not going to do anything against air, obviously. So, and I do manage to, I think, take out these fat boy too with this artillery fire, or maybe not. But the armies did end up kind of equating a little bit. So at this point, I do feel a little more comfortable in my army, but I lost a really sizable portion of my base. I actually lost a mass extractor here too, so that's it's a little bit of a difficult situation for me to deal with. Meanwhile, one of the fat boys did make its way around and tried to, I think he was trying to snipe, or she was trying to snipe my ACU here, but I used the fact that she was targeting my ACU here to push out a little bit. So, and here another fat boy will go down to these gunships that are just, you know, like, look at this. This is 7 gunships that are just super effective against the fat boy, even with some anti-air thrown in. And we do see the first strategic launch going out. Now, the one thing that is good for us is that we did manage to take out, you know, we suppressed Sloth a little bit here, and I also managed to take out the fat boy production from Shades. So that was definitely a bonus here, but this nuke is going to do a lot of damage because, again, my base is so close together. However, I was a little bit surprised that this nuke actually only takes out, I think, one artillery structure, which was crazy to me. It was just out of range of these 3, which is was kind of lucky for us, but still, that was just a lot of damage here. I also got so many research experience points in this game that I now feel comfortable going into ACU as well, and I've cleared out the field enough to where I can really just push out with my ACU as well. The unfortunate thing is that I only have 3 megaliths at this point, and that's just not enough ground fire here. So while I do have technically the strongest army, I'm not going to be able to do too much damage. And this Noah cannon is just super annoying at this point because, yeah, I have nothing over here. I tried to structure detonate my artillery structures, which is basically the only thing I can do to try and stop this advance. And I'm just waiting for, I believe, a megalith, but I don't realize that it's a Cicada at this point, which I don't know why I didn't switch it over, because one Cicada in this situation is more than enough. Spiff is trying to snipe Sloth with 3 gunships, which is not gonna work here. And there's another nuke building. So you're about to see the biggest mistake of this game, and it has to do with the way I attacked here. This nuke is building, so it's almost done, and there's definitely enough time for me to finish this off. So if I went straight down here, I would have taken out this nuke, probably would have taken out JWICS. But for some reason, I decided to push straight into... Oh, okay, I remember why I did this. I wanted to take out this Noah cannon because for some reason I deemed this to be a higher threat than the nuke at this point. Which technically is correct because I don't have a base, so a nuke really won't do anything to me economically. Because my whole base essentially is wrecked now. However, you're gonna see a really beautiful play from JWICS here. Just absolutely incredible. That nuke is seconds from being done. it is now done. And yeah, this play is great. I mean, there's nothing I can say. It's just, I don't know why that Psychota was activated. Yep, exactly what he needed. Great shot. I tried to engage with my ACU, but Jwix has just so much experience, he can upgrade his ACU too. So he just dumps all his research points into his commander, and that's the end of my army, and there's really no way for me to rebuild it. So from here on out, really, we do continue playing, but I think it's evident what is going to be the outcome of this game. So I'm just gonna play through this a little bit faster here at +5. But yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed playing this game, and I think it's a really interesting game to watch too. Hopefully you learned a little bit about, you know, 3v3s, closer 3v3s, and hope you enjoyed the game just in general. So while we wait for us all to die here, I do try to rebuild here. And if it wasn't, honestly, if it wasn't for this Noah cannon now, if I managed to take one or the other before they got a chance to use it, it would have been fine. But that nuke and the Noah cannon just is way too hard to deal with. There's actually another nuke being built, teleport coming out, so all three of them are still alive, I think. Yeah, all three. This is not gonna get broken by my megaliths, even if I do manage to get them out. The only thing that's gonna break through this is artillery, and there's no way I can get there before this nuke goes off, or this fat boy makes it over to my base, or this just ridiculous amount of mobile missile launchers. I try to slow them down by building like a row of energy generators, but they're good enough to target fire the important structures. So NACs are coming out now too, so you just see that this is not gonna end well. So that's really it for this game. As I said again, just more of a fun cast. This was just a really good reunion day and community game night for us. Enjoyed it quite a bit, and I was surprised to see how good these players are still at. Sloth and Shade, Sloth particularly, has not played this game for ages, so it was a really fun game. And if you're interested in joining one of our community game nights for Supreme Commander or any other game, just go ahead and join in on my Discord server. Links down in the description below, and you can join in on that or any other community game night that I have. I have events running in my server quite frequently, especially now with the coronavirus stuff going around. And yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe and comment if you haven't done so already. Like my video, and I hope to see you in a future video.